Okay. Hi, everybody. My name is Sydney, and I am going to present my learning chronology and agency presentation about the treehouse. We are in Winder, Georgia. I'm here with about 5 other interns that are BSW interns, or actually, one of them is doing family consumer science, so she's only here for 1 semester. Um, but yeah, so who does a treehouse serve and where are we? So, like I just said, we are located in Winder. The treehouse serves individuals in Winder County, Barrow County, and Jackson County only. So, if you live, let's say, in Clark County or anywhere else, there are other agencies that can help you, but we only serve if your address is in those 3 counties. For the treehouse to serve a client, they must reside in one of those 3 counties. The treehouse serves families, parents, and children, which I'll get into a little bit in a moment. And we serve children ages pretty much 0 to 18. Um, okay, so I was gonna use this link, but for the sake of time, I'll just skip it. It's actually on the treehouse website, so if you guys want to look at it, it's an interesting link about sexual child abuse awareness. So the Treehouse's mission statement is to end child abuse. It's pretty simple, short, and sweet. So they have a hashtag. It's called Save the One. So basically saying like save the one kid that's being abused, and hopefully one day we can end all child abuse. So the Treehouse provides 3 main different services. So the first service that we provide is forensic interviewing. So this is when a child, like I said, usually age is like, you obviously they have to be able to speak. So like 3 or 4, up until 18, come in and to disclose abuse or disclose an event to the treehouse. And so as us interns, we're allowed to sit in on those, which is really interesting if there is one like that day. So it's usually an intern, a transcriber, a DFAX worker, and then also a police officer, or they're investigative police officers. So then there's also clinical services. So the clinical staff right now isn't in office because of COVID, so they're doing all of their therapy on Zoom. So most of the clinical services that are provided are from based off of the kids who come in for forensic interviewing who need trauma-informed care. So a lot of the intakes are actually children who are already in the system from coming in for a forensic interview. Um, so they provide crisis counseling, therapy groups, individual therapy, non-offending caregiver support, and all of this is evidence-based practices that there are actually there's a lot of information about how they do this on the website. And then this is where we come in as interns. They're family services. So there are supervised visitations between biological parents and their children if the children have been taken out of the home by DFACs. There's also in-home parent education, parent coaching, and transportation to supervised visits for parents and children. Um, so you basically sit in a room with a parent or parents and their biological children, and you supervise and you document the interactions between the two. And then after or before it's required in their case plan that we do parent coaching. So we have a curriculum that pretty much goes over everything that you possibly could about parenting. So we use that. And I'll get into a little bit more about that when I talk about my duties here. So this placement is 100% in person, which I'm so thankful for because it just gives me somewhere to go, and I'm learning a lot about social work. And then also all services here are free of cost to our families, which is awesome. All right. So some barriers to receiving treehouse services, all 3 of those services, so forensic, clinical, and family services. It's pretty hard for parents to separate from their child. That's like a pretty big barrier that we see a lot in like the beginning of supervised visitations. Transportation is a big one. Our bosses are transporting all the time. So there's only 2 of them, and there's so many families. There's a lot of like crisscross about like where they pick up the family and then have to drop them off, then have to get the parent here. It's just a lot. And time management also, so if parents are working and having a job that limits their ability to come for visitation during the week, we do offer a 15-hour weekend visitation in that case. So usually our visits are either an hour or 2 hours, so it would be $100. It's people don't usually do that, or I haven't done one yet. So some outcomes that the Treehouse strives for, obviously, #Save the One, and together we can work to end child abuse and neglect. The fight to end child abuse and neglect, obviously, is one of the biggest outcomes that we hope to strive for here. Reuniting families when possible, using supervised visitation and parent coaching to help the parents through that process. Providing disclosures for law enforcement so justice can be served to those who do abuse children. Um, and these outcomes are usually measured by, or at least for my internship, it's usually measured by reunited families and how many services we provide each year. So some agency partners in community outreach. So there's Bethlehem Church, Jackson Electric Corporation, Toyota, Northeast Georgia Medical Center, Norcross Electric Supply. Those are just some of our partners. And some of the community outreach. So they do like educational booths at some events in town, mandated reporting training that we actually all had to do, and also suicide prevention training. Child abuse 101 training, we haven't done that yet, but I'm sure we will get to it. Social media safety training, again, we haven't done that, but they do provide it for parents and if anybody is interested in it. And Darkness to Light, which we also haven't done, but it's a child sexual abuse prevention training. So it's targeted towards sexual abuse, not so much physical. And then how is the Treehouse funded? So a big one is charitable donations, obviously, Georgia Center for Child Advocacy, United Way, PSSF, so Promoting Safe and Stable Families Network. So there's a lot of the, that's like a lot of the grant money that we get each year is from all those agencies in Georgia. So this is the annual report. So in 2019, the Treehouse provided 10,274 services. So and they were all free. So that's pretty insane. And then I have some charts about like the race, gender, types of abuse, and the counties that we serve. So race, primarily Caucasian, primarily female, and a lot of the abuse, especially for forensic interviewing, is sexual, unfortunately. So I don't really have to read all of these out, but the numbers are pretty staggering. Family services, so 828 supervised visitations for 49 adults and 83 children. There's transportation, parent education sessions, parent coaching sessions, etc. So if you guys just want to like look at those numbers, it's pretty profound. And so now I'm going to transition into my main duties as a social worker here. So like I said, supervised visitations, parent coaching. So I have 3 families right now that I see every week. One of them comes twice a week and the other 2 just come once a week, but they're all 2-hour visits. And then after I do parent coaching with them, just me and the parent, and kind of provide resources for them, just being an active listener. It's honestly surprising how a lot of them just really need somebody to listen to them. And then cleaning and sanitation, especially because of COVID, because we only have like 5 rooms in our visitation center. It's really, really important for us to be cleaning all the time because, kids and the toys and the germs, there's a lot. Sitting in on interviews, like I said about the forensic interviews, it's like nobody makes you do it. But it is really interesting to see how DFACS and law enforcement and the Treehouse kind of work together to get disclosures and to basically bring justice to those who've been abusing children. Transportation, so that's not really my duty exactly, but I do have to transport myself from Athens to Winder. It's like a 30-minute drive. So I'm like driving an hour per day. So that's my duty to get there. And child and parent advocacy, that's a really big one because I interact with both parent and children. So the children my biggest thing is to advocate for them. And then the parents also, when we're doing parent coaching, just me and them, I really do get to know them. And so I advocate for them and I try to help them through my documentation, which is like brought up in court when they have either reunification or terminate of their parental rights. So my main learning challenges in this internship is learning how to remain unbiased. It's really difficult. because there's a lot of different situations going on. It's really, really, really easy to judge people, especially when there's children involved. You know, you look at these kids and they're so cute and sweet, and then you look at the parent, you're like, oh, you're a bad parent. Like, this is like how could you do this? But then like during parent coaching, I really do just get to know them, and we build a relationship together too. So I'm just working on that bias within myself. So being empathetic is sometimes to a fault my learning challenge, but being able to leave work-related emotions at work is also really hard because some of this stuff is really taxing to my emotions. And sometimes it's just really hard. So that's a big learning challenge for me, I think, and a lot of the interns that work here. And then my third one is how to develop a relationship with a client, but remain professional by not letting my emotions take over. So I do want to remain professional as I can with the parents, you know, because sometimes we do get to a point in our relationship where things like get a little unprofessional. You know, they ask me for things, and but I just need to be able to remain like professional, and not let my empathy for them kind of, you know, break the rules or whatever. And some lessons that I've learned. Um, the first one, understanding that I have different views about what good parenting looks like because of my own experiences. So I grew up in a very nice house with very nice parents, and I've never had an issue with my parents. And a lot of these people, it is like a vicious cycle of drug abuse and sexual abuse, and how they were raised, and they're kind of mirroring that, and it's really hard to break that cycle. So I do need to remind myself of that a lot. Um, so documenting only events that I witness is incredibly important in terms of court hearings because, like I said, our documentation, it's like very, very important for court because if they are trying to reunify and there are things that we miss or things that we don't write down, it could be detrimental to the children as well. How to be an educator and advocate for my clients. So I really do try to educate my clients about parenting and what it means to parent and all that good stuff, and then also advocate for them when they need to be advocated for. So my social worker skills that I feel like I use a lot of social worker skills. Open and close-ended questions, obviously, like when I'm talking to the parents. Research about trauma-informed care with children, because a lot of these kids that we see day to day have experienced trauma in some sort of way, unfortunately. Communication skills with clients, so like active listening. Like there are times where after the visit, you know, they just need help processing it, and I sit there for however long I need to, and you know, listen to them cry and try to be as empathetic and helpful as I can to them. And then appropriate self-disclosure as well, because it is kind of easy to to forget forget about self-disclosure and appropriate self-disclosure. It's like, oh, like they say this, like, oh, well, I did this. You know, there's just things that I need to remind myself of. So yeah, that is my presentation. And I really appreciate you guys watching. If you have any questions, you can just go on the little uh the post on ELC and ask me. I would be happy to answer anything. So I really appreciate you guys watching. Thank you.